Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well today. We're going to be doing 5 thrift flip planters in this video, but first I wanted to go through the decoupage papers that I just got in and put on my website. So we're going to flip through those and then we're going to start on our projects. Okay, so let's just jump right into project number 1. I'm going to be using some of the decoupage papers that I showed you. This is a 4-part paper that we're going to use, And I've got this planter that I thrifted, and I don't think I even paid but $1 for it. I'm going to clean it with some alcohol. I'm actually not even going to paint this, believe it or not. I like the color and the patina of it, and we're going to be adding to it. So I'm going to go ahead and use water and a paintbrush to go ahead and tear apart these decoupage papers. And I want to have an organic frayed edge on it. I want this to look rather rustic. I think in the end I'm looking for a look like maybe these were put on a really long time ago, and you know, they've been there for years and they're worn out and whatever. So having that organic look is really going to work. I'm using a ruler to kind of cut the one side of it, and it actually turned out to be harder to do that than to just do it with my fingers. So I went back in and I just used my brush and kind of tore the edges, and I wanted it to have that organic look and get off the white on the edges of this. So I just kind of did that all the way around. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to be putting all of these on. I did not put anything white on the back of my paper, nor did I paint the area, the surface that I'm putting these down on white. I don't really care if it pops that much or if it's that bright. I almost want it to blend in. So I'm going to go ahead and just decoupage those on. And I'm using my decoupage transfer gel, and I'm just going to put each one of them on, you know, put some on and then put the paper on, and I'm trying to line them up to where they're reasonably, you know, the same height and everything. But I'm just going to go all the way around the 4, and this is extremely easy, so not a lot to say here. Now all I'm doing is I'm using my heat gun to dry it and also get out any bubbles or wrinkles. This is rice paper, and it really goes on very easy, very few wrinkles. It's very sturdy, and when you wet it and tear it, it gives you that organic look. Now what I'm doing is I have a new Pent Art product, and this is a rust kit. And you get these different colors and a little additive that you put in it, and it basically gives you a total of 4 colors and then a texture additive. And I'm basically just taking a little bit of each of these colors, and I'm going to put them down on this parchment paper just so that I can kind of mess with them. I like to kind of mix my colors when I do this, and this is a really fun kit to have. Of course, you could do this with just acrylic paint or chalk paint and you know, salt wash or sand or whatever, but honestly it's really fun to just have the little kit, and the colors are perfect. It makes the perfect rust. It works amazing. So I do sell this, and if it's something that you want, you could you know, add that to your toolkit there. So anyway, after I put the colors down, there is this little like sand additive that you add to it, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that and get a little texture. And I usually start with the darkest color, and then I use the same brush and I just add the different colors, and I go all the way around anywhere I think it's going to be rusty. So this has this galvanized look on the side, and I had to make it rusty because I just couldn't help myself. And this kit's really fun. And I like the containers that it comes in because I think the chances of them drying out quickly will be a lot better than if you have them in a little jar. So anyway, I'm just taking each color and I'm kind of mixing them. And then of course what I do is I also just take my mister bottle and I wet it, and that's going to make it kind of drippy and also blend together. And that's pretty much how I do it. After that dries, I am just taking a clear coat. I'm just using Fusion's clear wax, and I'm going over the whole thing to seal it. I don't really need to do that, but I like to have an extra sealant on there, especially for something that you might put outdoors. So also what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of the Fusion's aging wax, and I'm going to go over it and wipe back quite a bit of it around the edges. I just want this to look a little bit more old, like it's been around for a while. And of course I'm going over the top with it. And now I've already put the wax down, and also I use the Fusion transfer gel, which is also a sealer. So it's been sealed a couple times already. But I wanted to put the clear wax down because I wanted to not make your decoupage paper too dark. I didn't want too much of that darkness seeping in there. And now what I'm doing is I am using something called grit. It's kind of a dirt adding thing. You have to have wax or some sort of top coat to add it to, but what it does is it gives a very natural look of dirt, basically, like it's been dirt's gotten on it. And I'm just kind of doing that on the edges a little bit and in a few little places here and there, just to kind of grunge this up a little bit more. And I just go around all of them and do that. So after I do that, I am just taking my scissors or just some sort of sharp edge, and I'm going to go ahead and cut the little slits where you see there on the planter. It has those little slits, so it is going to be conform to how the planter already is. And I'm just going ahead, and if it tears or rips a little bit, that's okay too. And I could use your straight edge, but this works fine. It's working for me. And I'm just going to go around and do all of that. And after I do that, I'm going to take my sander and kind of sand around the whole thing because I want it to look even more distressed. And just like somebody had maybe glued these on at one point, and now they're they're worn off. And then I go around the edges with my little finger sander, and I'm just going to go all the way around with that. So after I do all that, I am going to take some glaze, and this is by Paint Couture. It's Amber Honey Glaze, and I'm going to go ahead and go around the edges of this whole each of the little seed packets, and also in the little slits that I just put in there, because realistically they would be not perfect. So I'm going to go around and do all of that on all of them. So that's it. That's our little planter. I think it turned out really, really cute. It's rustic. Has that wonderful rusty look that looks authentically like rust to me. And I love those little seed packets on there. So let me know what you think about it. Alright, project number 2. Now this one's a little bit more involved, but it turns out really great. I bought this at 90% off and it was $2, so whatever that math is, y'all figure that out. And anyway, it actually had dirt in it and a little plastic thing, and the hardest part of this honestly was taking off this sticker. It did not want to come off. So anyway, I got it all cleaned up and I got the sticker off of it. And now I'm going to be using some molds. And we're going to use several different ones. First off, we're going to be using the Swags mold. And I'm going to put some cornstarch down. And I'm going to do this swag portion there with the roses. And I'm going to just roll our IOD air dry clay. And we're just going to make a big snake, and I'm going to go all the way down the snake and just kind of press it in and make sure that I get a good impression. I'm pressing it in with my thumbs, and we're going to use that micro rim to help us get the extra clay off and just kind of get it all smushed in there. And I like to get my clay flat in the back so it lays flat later when I'm trying to attach it to something. So I have a brayer that I use for my clay. Of course, you can use it for multiple things. The clay will wash off of it. But I just use that to kind of make sure I flatten out the back, and then I go ahead and get the extra clay off the back. And that does two things. It flattens out the back. It also pushes the clay in to get a really good impression. Of course, you could use like a credit card or a gift card, or I a lot of times use my transfer stick. I turn it over and let gravity help me get it out, and if there's any little pieces I need to take off, I do. I also will sometimes just take some water on a paintbrush, and what that does is it smooths out the edges if they're a little rough. Anyway, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to put this on there. I'm not 100% sure, so I play with it for a little bit. So I had cast 2 of these, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and put some Titebond glue on there. And I just use a little tongue depressor to spread it all over. Make sure you get it to the end so the ends don't lift up. And I will go ahead and put those down. And they're going to overlap a little bit. And you'll see what I do with that. I just basically cut it to fit. So I'm going to have 2 different pieces, and they're going to overlap a little bit because they're a little big. And then I am going to use my palette knife to kind of cut them so that they fit together, and then we're going to have like just a little swag with this. So now I overlap it, and I basically take the part on the inside off, and then I just kind of put those 2 together so that they fit together. Really easy to do. And I do that on both sides so that I will have a nice little swag there. And just lift out that extra clay, and then I just kind of smush them together. so that it fits on top. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start casting a few more pieces to put on here and just adding to this. So what I'm doing now is there's other parts of the swag mold that I'm going to be using, and I cast that top part there, and I'm going to do that 2 times, and we're going to use 2 of those. Going to add this crown element, the smaller crown, and this is in the laurel mold. And the little cross on top of it won't fit, so I'm going to be basically just putting the other portion of that crown in there, and that is going to fit right in the swag area. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the fleur-de-lis mold. I'm going to get that little rabbit, and I'm going to go ahead and put that on there. And now I'm using part of the olive crust mold. This is one of my favorites. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get my apothecary labels out, and I am going to put lapin on there, which means rabbit, and I'm doing each letter separately so that I can fit them on there. And it's probably not perfect, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and just press it into the clay so that we'll have that impression. And after I do that, I find another little piece that has like a little flower added to it, and I put that at the bottom because we have a little space there, and that will be an impression in the clay. So now I'm just going to start gluing all of my little pieces on with my Type On quick and thick glue. And I am going to let this dry for about 45 minutes before I move on to the next part. I don't need it completely dry. I just need it to be it to get kind of hard so that I can paint it. So I'll let that sit aside after I get all my pieces on. I put my little swags on, I put my little rabbit, my crowns, and then I decide that I want to have something on the bottom. So now I'm going to get part of the primitive mold. There's like a little thin piece on the bottom of trim, and it comes apart and falls apart, but it's okay. I'm going to kind of put them all together, and I'm going to actually just put that trim at the very bottom. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to take Fusion's Oakum, and I'm going to go over the whole thing. And this is after I waited for about, I would say 45 minutes to an hour, so that my molds are kind of crusty but yet not soft. I don't want to distort them. I'm using a soft bristle brush. I'm going to go over it with just one coat over the whole thing, and then I'm going to let it dry. And I'll probably let it dry for a couple hours so that my molds are a little bit harder. So now what I'm going to be doing is I am using some milk paint, and this is by Sweet Pickins. There's the bespoke paint and the regular Sweet Pickins. We have window pane, and the way milk paint works is it's you put 1 part powder to 1 part water, so it would be equal parts water, equal parts powder, or you can kind of mix it to what you think you want. And we're using antique ironstone and window pane, and they may seem very similar to you, but one is kind of a creamy beige and one of is more of a light gray. And I want that contrast because I like to add different but similar types of paint when I'm trying to make something look really old. I do think that when you have something that has been around for a while, it will have several layers of paint, and the paint won't all be the same color, or it will fade differently, and that's why I do that. So I'm going to let my paint thicken up a little bit, and I am going to start with the one color, the window pane color first. And I'm going to go over the whole thing with that, but I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm skipping a lot of the pot. I want that oakum to show through, and one reason I use the Fusion's Oakum is that it has a clear coat and also a top coat and a primer in it, and so I didn't have to do anything other than put that one coat on, and I didn't have to worry about the milk paint reactivating a clay or a chalk paint because it was already sealed. Now, of course, you could use a clay paint and seal it, or a chalk paint and seal it, but this keeps me from having to do that step. So I'm going over it, and I'm actually purposely trying not to do it perfectly, and I'm going to go over the whole thing, and I will use my heat gun on every layer that I do because I want some cracking. And that's another thing too, when you're using milk paint on a porous surface like this clay pot, if you do not have whatever the pieces that you're doing sealed, that it will probably not crack much because it's going to soak into that clay, the pot, and it's not really going to do any chipping or cracking. But if you have a sealed surface like we do with that with the Fusion paint, then you will have a better chance of getting some cracking and chipping, and that's what we're wanting here. So now what I'm doing is I'm adding my second color, and now you can see the contrast. You've got a cool kind of grayish white color, and now you've got kind of a creamy beigey color, and that's the antique ironstone, and that is a very creamy kind of color. And so now what we're going to do is I'm going to go over it with that, but I'm not, again, trying to get full coverage. I'm just kind of going over portions of it because I want the two different colors to show. course, now what I'm doing is I'm going to go ahead and take my heat gun, and that is going to lead to some cracking. You can see the cracking and crazing now happening, and that's really cool. Now, of course, you don't have to, you know, distress it as much as I'm doing, but I really like that very distressed look, like this is an old pot that's been in the garden forever. And I really don't think there's anything but milk paint that gives you that type of crackling and crazing. So if you haven't tried milk paint, you should just get a little packet, try it. And you know, you can also do it to where you don't get a lot of cracking. I'm going to show you that later on. But that cracking, if you look at that, is just absolutely beautiful, isn't it? As I am going over the whole thing with some clear wax by Fusion. I want to put that on basically to kind of keep my paint from turning really dark, because we're going to be adding some oil wax in a minute, and it will kind of seal that paint. You could also put a spray on there, spray sealer or a liquid sealer, but I'm going to go ahead and use the wax. And also you could stop at this point. Part of the reason I did the wax is I was thinking I might leave it at this point, which I think it looks really good. But now I'm using Sweet Pickins dark oil wax, and I'm going over the whole thing. And this is going to get into all those little crevices and creases and those little teeny tiny crazing cracks. And the oil wax, I mean, you can always use a dark wax, but the oil wax to me gets into those little cracks and creases a little bit better than the just a regular wax. So you let it sit for about 10 minutes, and then you just take I just take a dry rag and start wiping it back, and you'll see that it did change the color of the paint a little bit. It'll dry and not be so dark, but also it will not be so shiny. The shininess goes away. It dries really matte. And then the one thing that I do later is I will take the lighter color and I will go back over the entire thing with the fan brush and just hit the high points. It'll give it more definition. And when it all dries, you'll see all those different colors in there. And that's pretty much all I do to the end of it. I will go ahead usually and just spray this really quickly with a spray sealer, because I've put some more milk paint on there that has to be sealed, rather than doing a wax or anytime paint on. I don't want to blend these colors together. I want you to see them separately. So a spray sealer usually does better for that. And I don't put a lot on. I just spray a little bit. And I put that on just to give you the contrast again. And I also decided to use some of that grit. That is that Sweet Pickins grit. It's like a dust, and I'm going to go in all the little letters on the pen, and I'm going to go in different portions of this pot. It looks very authentically dirty, so yeah, I really love this. And you basically just put it on where you have wax, or maybe where you have a glaze or a sealer while it's still wet. It has to have something to stick to. But it's really great because you can really just kind of put it where you want, and then you just kind of dust off the extra. And that's it. That is our very weathered French country looking pot. I love this. Love it. These would make great Mother's Day gifts also, guys. Put a nice little plant in it. That'd be a wonderful gift. So projects number 3 and 4, they're very similar, so I grouped them together. And I'm going to be using some more milk paint. Surprise, surprise. I'm using the color Gumdrop. And this is a very, very retro looking color to me, so it works really, really well with what we're going to do. And it's powder. We're going to use the 1 part powder to 1 part water, but the difference here is we are going to be adding just some extra bond to this. And what that extra bond is going to do is it's going to keep my paint from completely chipping off, because we're going to be adding this to some galvanized pieces. And I have done this before where I did not put the extra bond in it, and it pretty much completely flaked off of my project. And milk paint really, the chippiness I found and the how it reacts has a lot to do with whether or not your project is sealed, and if it's porous. There's just it has a lot to do with what you're putting it on. Anyway, I'm using my little mixer thing that I got, and it works okay, but I'm not that crazy about it. Alright, so I'm adding my little extra bond in there, and you put about 1/3 of the amount of water, or that 1/3 of what you put in there. And I had put 2 caps in there, so I'm putting about a half of one of those caps in there with it. And I'm going to mix it in there. I've already mixed it pretty good with my little blender thing that I have. It works okay. It's just not that great. I think if I got one a little bit, bigger. The thing is, you have to depress it with your thumb while you're doing it. So you let that set for about 10 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and take this off of here. This was a clearance item that I got at Hobby Lobby. Always check the clearance aisle. Sometimes you can get deals cheaper than you can get things in the thrift stores. So I am going to be going over this. It's going to take about 3 coats of this milk paint, and I think it's an absolutely beautiful color. And I'm going to go over this 3 times, and it's not going to chip much, and it's not going to flake much. So we're going to go over this 3 times and let it dry, and then we'll go over it a 4th time after that dries without the extra bond. Now all I'm doing is, this is my 4th time, and I'm doing this without the extra bond, and it will give me just a little bit of crazing, a little bit. It won't really chip. It's just going to give me a little bit of that kind of an old distressed look without a lot of chipping. Now, of course, you could just not put this last coat on and you would be fine. I want it to look a little bit distressed and a little bit old, so that's why I'm putting this coat on without the extra bond. But because there's already extra bond on there, it's not going to be cracking or crazing a lot. So now I have another little flower pot, and it's a galvanized one that now I got this at a thrift store, and it was 90% off on $2. I always go to the thrift stores when they're 75 and 90% off, and that way whatever I'm getting is just astronomically cheap, because I'm cheap. So anyway, I'm going to go over this and get all of that stickiness off of there, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint this whole thing. I'm going to do the same thing as I did with the other one. I'm going to go over it 3 times with the extra bond gumdrop, and then I'm going to go the 4th time without the extra bond. coat, I use my heat gun to dry it because I do want a little bit of cracking, so that will give me just a little bit. And now what I'm doing is I am looking through my transfers, and I am looking through Ephemeral Melange and the seed catalog, and I decided to use this piece from the seed catalog. I think I have a few of these left. I know I have one that I need to bring and put it back in my inventory, so, but I know that IOD's out of these, and I had ordered a lot, but y'all love this one. So anyway, I picked this. I love this. I used this on my wreath a couple weeks ago, but I love the retro look of this, and I think the red and these pink colors go so well with this gumdrop. So I'm going to go ahead and put this transfer on, and it goes on really easy. Oh, and I forgot to say, I sealed this with my satin top coat by Paint Couture. I completely forgot to tell you that. So I've sealed both these pieces and let it dry before I tried to put a transfer on. You really want to seal your milk paint, not with wax on it for a transfer. You want it, wax makes it very difficult, if not impossible. So I put that on, and now what I'm going to do is I picked out these roses from the Katharina. This is from the new spring release that they had. I think I have a couple of these left, and IOD is out of those, so I'm not sure. I have to check. But I had a few left, and then who knows, you know. I think they're going to get them back in stock in May if you didn't get one. But anyway, they have these gorgeous, beautiful roses. And I think that these roses have like this very retro look to them. And I think this will go really well. And like I said, I think that that green and the red go together really, really well. So after I get my transfers on, I am going to go over the handles with some red paint, and I'm just using Fusion's Fort York Red. It's a beautiful bright red, and I'm just the trick to doing this really is just load up your brush enough to where you can just kind of go over the outside portion of it, and I'm going to go over the entire handle. And then I'm going to do around the rim and then the bottom rim just to kind of give it a trim of the red. Now on this planter, I decided it needed a little bit more on the sides. It just seemed like it was too square. So I took a couple of the roses from the Katharina, and what's interesting is that they just go together so well. That's one thing I love about IOD's transfers, that you really can mix and match them so well. So anyway, I do that. I put some more roses on the side, and then I want some lettering, and I got this from, I don't remember which one. I had some letters. I think this may have actually come out of Ephemeral Melange. I'm not positive, but I had some extra letters, and then I got this other round portion that needed something else on top. So I went ahead and did that, and I got it to where I think I had enough transfers on it. And then I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing and paint the red around the handle, and then I'm going to do the top rim. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to take some Sweet Pickins oil wax in the white. It's one of my new favorite things because the oil wax, just like the dark oil wax, it really gets in, it shows any little imperfections, and that's what I'm going for here. I'm wanting it to go in all the little cracks. I thought about using a dark wax, and I will add a glaze later, but I kind of didn't want it to get too dark. I want this to look old and vintage, like it's been around for a while, but not necessarily super grungy, so that's why I use the white oil wax on this, and I really love how it turned out. I think it added just enough of a older look to it, and it got in showed all the little imperfections and all the little cracking and grazing of the whole thing. And so I put it on and I left it there for about 10 minutes, and then I just wiped it back. So now what I'm going to do is I am using some Amber Honey Glaze by Paint Couture, and I'm going to go around the edges, and I'm going to go around the handles and just some spots where I want it to look a little bit darker, and I'm going to wipe most of it back. And then, of course, I'm going to use that same rag to just kind of lightly go over the whole piece. Now, mind you, I sealed it with the oil wax, so our transfer is sealed, but this is just going to add just a little bit more of a vintage look to it. And a lot of it's going to wipe off because I have the oil wax on there, but I just want a little touch of it looking a little bit more vintage. Same thing, I'm going to be using the Amber Honey Glaze, and I'm just kind of doing it around the edges or anywhere I think that it should look a little bit more old and a little bit more vintage. So I was very, very tempted to put rust on this, guys. I really, really was. I think the rust effects would look really cool on this, but I didn't do it. Okay, so here's our finished projects. I think that beautiful green color, has a very vintage look, and it looks great with the red. And I love the transfers. I think it has kind of a retro vintage look to it. Let me know what you think. Alright, so this is project number 5. It's going to be our last project for the day. So I thrifted this little planter, and it's a boot. It's kind of cool the way that it is, but we're going to just do something a little bit different with it. I am using Fusion iron clay, and it is pretty much an exact terracotta look. If you want something that looks terracotta, that's it. Iron clay by Fusion. And now what I'm doing is I'm looking at my Lost Garden transfer book, and I'm picking out some transfers to put on this. This is a great transfer set if you want to piece pieces together and have like that climbing, very natural, organic look to it. And that's kind of what we're doing. Now Fusion has a built-in sealer top coat, so all I had to do is paint it. I did it a couple of coats and it went right over it, and I love using Fusion when I'm going to use transfers because they come off really easily. All I did is put some little slits in there to help me go over all these lumps and bumps. It's really not as hard as it looks. All you really have to do is just figure out where you want them, kind of trim it, the way you want it. I trim off any of the excess paper that I don't need, and then I'll go ahead and cut some slits in it to help it mold to what I'm transferring. And it surprisingly goes down pretty easy. It's not really that hard at all. Just have to make sure you go over it with your transfer stick. All I'm doing is just kind of piecemealing any little blank spots that I have. I'm just figuring out what would look like it, is connected, and filling in all of those little spots. And then the back of this is flat. It's meant to be hanging up on a wall. It also stands straight up too, so I mean you could basically do it like a shelf sitter too. But anyway, I just keep going around until I fill it all in. Burnished all of my transfers, which basically just the little transfer sheet on the shiny side. I just went over it to make sure the transfers are lying all down. And now I'm taking Fusion's liming wax and I'm going over the whole thing with it. I really was debating whether I wanted to go with a dark wax or a white wax. So I opted to go with the white wax, and then I'm going to go ahead and take just a little bit of that grit from Sweet Pickins and go in all the cracks and crevices with that. And I go kind of heavy on the heel to make it look a little darker. And it really does have like a little dusty look to it later. I'm not even sure that I really like it. I may go back over it with the dark wax. But anyway, I just thought I'd go this option because I didn't really want to make it look too dark. So here it is, all done. It's a very different look than how it started. I think this would be really cool on a real boots. I think that'd be kind of fun, wouldn't it? Anyway, that is our last project. If you are in need of fusion paint, Sweet Pickins Milk Paint, Paint Couture, Pet Art Products, IOD, or decoupage papers, head on over to my website, rehatchdesigns.com. The link will be in the description. If you buy over $50, it's free shipping. Under $50, it's a flat rate of $8. Also, if you are new to my website, you get a 10% discount on your first order. After that, sign up for our emails. We send out discount coupons all the time, let you know when there's sales, and I'll let you know when we have new products. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate you spending your time with me. I know your time's valuable, and I hope you got something out of this. If you did, please think about subscribing to my channel and give me a thumbs up, a share, a like. I greatly appreciate it. Have a great day and see you next time.